There is a magazine title that you could resell for hundreds to thousands of dollars over time, and sometimes hundreds of dollars in one sale. Yet most resellers, in my experience, seem to pass it up. That magazine is none other than Mad Magazine. This is one of my favorite magazines as a kid growing up, yet it came out originally well before my time in 1952. Now, we'll get into the history of it a little bit later, but over the years, I have shown in many of my What Sold videos, Mad Magazine lots that have sold for well over $100, sometimes even close to around $200. Now, how many magazines it takes to make that kind of money depends partly on the age of the issues and how many of them you have, and the condition, of course, will factor into it. Now, this lot right over here is a lot that is going out in tomorrow's mail. It's 29 Mad magazines that vary from the 1950s all the way to the 1980s, and these magazines sold for a buy it now price of $70. Technically $69.99. Now, these can easily be sourced for $1 or less. Sure, you will sometimes find people trying to sell them for more than that, but then you just ignore those people who are trying to sell it for you for that unless you could negotiate it. But I've sometimes gotten these for 50 cents, 25 cents, even lower than that sometimes, depending on the bulk deal that I'm able to pull off and other things that might be thrown into the deal as well. Just today, as a matter of fact, at the flea market, someone was selling 17 Mad magazines and Cracked magazines, sold them to me for $10 because he told me that they were just sitting there out in the flea market for 3 months. Yet no one asked him at all how much they cost or were interested in any way about buying them. So in this video, we're gonna take a deeper dive into Mad Magazine. I'm gonna show you some things to look for and ways that this magazine can help you grow your reselling business. The constant character who you are going to see on the cover of Mad Magazines is none other than this guy right here, Alfred E. Neuman. Now, this is what he normally looks like. He's often presented as a teenager or young adult. Sometimes they will regress him to a more baby-like form, as you see here, and once in a while, you may see him as a silhouette. In many covers, you will see him integrated with another famous character from fiction or real life. In this instance, you could see he has Spock-like features here with his ears, even though he is side by side with the original Spock, Leonard Nimoy. You could see here how he's hiding in his original form inside of R2-D2. And you could see here how he's controlling Bruce the Shark from Jaws. And here you could see how he's present in his original form besides John Travolta in Grease. So many of the covers involved Mad Magazine taking shots at and making fun of movies, entertainment, but also aspects of real life and, as I mentioned, politics. Now, in general, there are two main types of Mad magazines that you want to be on the lookout for. The first type, as you can see here, is your standard monthly issue. Now, generally, it's very easy to figure out what type of issue you're dealing with because it says so right on the cover. So, for example, as you can see here, it says that this is the January 1958 issue, number 37. And the size of this issue is roughly the size of the standard magazine that you are all familiar with. And You could see that right here as I tilt that to the side. You see here, there's no thick binding or anything like that. It's just a simple fold over. Now that differs from the next type that you would be looking for, which is known as the special and sometimes also known as the annual. Now, as you can see here, this is a collection of prior articles from Mad Magazine. So it's a compilation and a reprint. As a result, because it's a reprint and it's not the original time that the material is being presented, specials are generally not as valuable as individual issues, although there are sometimes exceptions. Now, compared to the binding that I showed you here, which again is just a general basic fold over here, you could see this is a thicker binding, so it's very easy to tell the difference, both in terms of the binding thickness, and also it's going to tell you on the front cover that this is a special. Now, you could try to get lots of specials together and just sell them as specials if you want. That's one way to go about it. And you could break those out as separately from the regular standard Mad Magazine issues. And here's a great example of 62 Mad Magazine specials that sold for $237.50 on auction. Now, my preference in selling Mad Magazines is to sell them off in these big lots. But if you want to, you can sell them as individual issues. There's always going to be someone out there who is missing a particular issue to complete a run, whose own issue got damaged or lost and they just need to replace it. Or, you know, you could have somebody out there, for example, who is a big Eddie Murphy fan and loves Beverly Hills Cop. You know, more commonly, you know, someone who's a Star Trek fan. So, you know, this is very easy to market to, or, you know, you can market this to a Star Wars fan, or market this to a Jaws fan, or market this to a Grease fan, and so on and so forth. These magazines, since they poke fun of society and entertainment and TV shows, it really helps to make it marketable to very specific niche or niche audiences. Now we're going to talk a little bit about condition, because that is a major reason why I think a lot of these magazines get passed up by resellers. Now, while it's true that condition definitely impacts value, what is also true is that Mad Magazine collectors generally know and understand that these magazines were treated with a lot of love back in the day. And what I mean by love is that they were well read and well used, and they weren't specially protected, especially in the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, and even the 80s. So like you can see here, whoever read this magazine seems to have put like a cup of coffee on this every morning before reading it. And, you know, as a result, we've got this big yellow brown stain on it, yet it's still sold. So you disclose these flaws. However, it's not going to be something that's going to prevent a sale to someone. And someone is going to pay up for it. Yeah, sure, there's someone who might look at and say, I don't want it. But someone is going to come across it who does. That's the main point. So whether there's, you know, a big brown stain on it, or if there are creases all on the spine that break color, whether there are scratch marks, you know, in the middle of the book, whether there's little tears on the cover, whether there's pieces of the corner that have been chipped, whether there's tears on the inside of the book, and whether there's pink stains on the inner cover, or if there's writing on the back cover like this. If there's brown spotting here, yeah, that's a 1958 issue, but here's a 1968 issue. This is all part of what's sold. Some of the covers might even be detached as long as it's still there, you could still include it. In fact, you could even sneak in a few coverless Mad magazines and they'll still sell as part of the lot as well. All right, so let's take a look inside of a Mad magazine if you never looked inside one before. So the vast majority of the ones you're going to see are going to have a color interior cover on the front and back, and then the rest of the magazine is going to be in black and white. Now, this is different from the 1950s issues that you're going to come across like this one, which is going to have a black and white interior, unless, of course, someone put a pink stain on the inside of it. But you can see that here as well. We've got the back interior cover is also black and white. And also, keep in mind and in your memory what you see here for this back cover, because it's very different from something they started doing later on in future issues. This is what I wanted to show you about the back cover, because sometimes people will see this and think that this is a problem if there's like a crease that you could see that runs along here. But this is actually common because this is known as the trifold. This is what they started doing in later issues of Mad. So as you can see here, what they would encourage you to do is to fold this back cover in on itself so that it would transform the scene. So right here, it looks like we're dealing with an army map. But then when we fold this in on itself, now it looks like we have an elephant and a donkey. And what is that a symbol of? Well, you got it. On the campaign trail, Republicans and Democrats, it even changes the words on the bottom. How cool is that? So this was something that a lot of people love to do. So if you see these creases, don't worry about it, because your average Mad magazine collector is going to understand why it's there. All right, now let's take a deeper dive into some Mad magazine comps that could help you figure out, if you find these things, what's the best way to list them and which individual issues should you look for. Now, I'm going to give some highlights of those, and if you stay until the very end, I've got 2 extra special bonus bolo ones for you. All right, what you see here is a lot of 81 consecutive Mad magazine issues from 1966 through 1976. So this brought in a nearly $500 sale. So to make these big money sales with Mads, you do not always have to have ones from the 1950s. Now, since it's difficult to find a large lot of consecutive issues, this is a more common approach here, which is to combine a mixed lot of Mad magazines by decade. So here you could see we've got 84 from the 1960s and 1970s, with a few from the 1950s that sold for $315. Now, you don't always have to have 80 Mad magazines to make $300 to $500 off of it. For example, here, just having 4 consecutive Mad magazines from 1956 was enough to bring in a $330 sale on an eBay auction. In fact, you could even sell 1 Mad magazine from the 1950s for $300. In this instance, Mad magazine number 17, which was graded in very fine condition by CGC. Now here's another example of a near $300 sale for Mad magazine number 7 from 1953, graded in fine plus condition, also by CGC. Early Mad magazines do not always have to be graded to bring in good money. This is a great example here of Mad magazine number 11, featuring the art of Basil Wolverton. Wolverton, who you could see here, was famous for drawing all sorts of grotesque images of people and figures, as you could see in this example. And he influenced many modern artists like Mark Hansen, who drew one of my favorite comics as a kid, Ralph Snart. Now here's 2 examples of single Mad magazines from the 1950s that sold for nearly $200. Here we've got Mad number 8, which was not graded, and Mad number 42, which was graded.
Also, keep in mind that for these 1950s issues, you are often going to see the listing say EC in the title. You definitely want to put that in as a keyword because EC was the original publisher of Mad Magazine before they were eventually bought out. Although they were very famous for their horror titles, Mad Magazine was the last publication EC ever made. Now, there are some single issues outside of the 1950s that also will sell well. Definitely pick up the Fidel Castro cover from 1963 if you ever find it, because that one just sold for $155. Now, you don't always have to sell Mad magazines in auction format. They will do very well there, but they'll also do very well in buy it now format.
Now, as a little shipping tip here with magazines and comic books as well, when you start stacking them up like this, they often tend to lean in one direction. So a little hack to prevent that is to start divvying them off in sections. In this case, we don't have too many, so we could just take about half of it or so. And then you just flip them around like this. And that then helps to even off the balance of what you have here. So they will no longer lean to one side or the other. Plus, you don't want your top issue to be front facing like this, whatever's going to be on the top. You want it face down just in case there's any pressure that comes down onto that top issue from some source. You want it facing in. So you see I do have them bagged and boarded. I use BCW bags and boards. I have links to them in my description section. They're Amazon affiliate links, so anyone who buys any of them, it does help to support the channel. But now what I'm going to do to keep these nice and sturdy is I will take some tape, and this tape does not stick badly to this. In other words, it's easy to pull off, but it keeps it secure. And I just put a piece right here. Put a piece right here. Put a piece right here. And one more right here. And no, I've never had a single complaint for doing that. So as I've shown before, I will encase these in my own custom-made cardboard box. I will then put them inside of another box, and then off it goes. All right, if you made it this far, congratulations. As a reward, I'm going to give you 2 big money Mad Magazine bolos that so many people will walk by and miss. Before we do that, always remember to check out the description section and the comment section for a link to the featured member. This time, it's none other than Crystal Splitter from Retroverse PNW. She's got an awesome store, over 1,100 items. She's done very well when she's been featured in my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. So come join us over there and come check out the join button to join membership, and you could be featured as well. Now let's go check out those items.
All right, you could easily pass up a $200 item here with Mad Magazine number 24 because it has such a nondescript cover. But this is the first time it took on the traditional magazine format I was talking about earlier. And this one could easily be missed as well, because how would you know from looking at it that it's actually the first time that Alfred E. Neuman was ever featured on the cover? Another near $200 sale for that one.
I hope you enjoyed this new series in which I'm taking a deeper dive into items. So if so, make sure you leave a comment to tell me, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you at the next one, everyone. Take care.